What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Dathan, aka the Brown Llama from the Winkin' Gentleman Society. And we're going to go ahead and get started on our video number 2 for Excel. This one's going to be a short one. It's just going to go over some more things in the Insert tab, specifically going over how to insert charts. It's really simple, really easy. And the only thing you really need to do is make sure you have a table of data in order for it to be represented in your chart. So let's go ahead and get started with this. And I'll also show you how to make a quick pivot table out of that same exact data. All right, let's jump in. All right, so I started a blank workbook. And with this one, I have some information already set. And what I'm going to do is just show you different ways to represent that same information. Again, we're going to be using the Insert tab, and we're just going to be inserting various charts of that same exact information. So let's go and grab some information so that we can create our first table here. All right, so the first one I'm going to show you is the pivot table. For some reason, people think it's something difficult or complex. It's really not. All it is just it's a different way to represent your data, and it just gives you more flexibility on how you want that data to be, exhibited, how you want it to be shown. If you want to manipulate certain tabs or certain information to show up. So I'm going to show you that real quick. Again, super easy, really effective way to just kind of jump around through your data. So the first thing I'm going to do is go here. I have a sheet here, and this is just some arbitrary information I put in. Obviously, some video games, some wonderful price in there. So this is where I'm going to get my data from. So the first thing I'm going to do is highlight this range of data. We're going to go to a pivot table. Now you do have a few different options if you want to insert it in the same sheet or a new sheet, or if you want to grab an external data source, which I'm going to show you an example of that. But for now, we're just going to put in a new worksheet. Okay. So here you see it tells you about building your pivot table report. Over here is where you want to pay attention. You have different fields and how you want to arrange those fields. So again, if you've ever been intimidated by hearing about a pivot table, is really nothing. It's like some lame brain thing. Is nothing hardcore. So let's say we want to see our products, which will be our games. So you can put that either in rows, and you can see how it automatically puts that row together for you, or you can put it in columns. Again, it's all about how you want to see the data represented. So, for the sake of simplicity, let's go with rows to set up our games. Then we have the month sold because we want to see when we've been selling these games. So I'm going to grab month sold and we're going to put that in the column. And then you see how that puts that across for you. So far is literally building a table for you. Then we want to take sales. The amount of sales you want to keep in mind down here in this box with values, that's always going to be something that has some sort of numerical data. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to put something there that's not doing any calculation. So as long as there's numerical data, that's going to always go into your value section. So let's put our sales and values. And then finally, we have our sale origin. And what I have in the chart is whether it was online or in store. So we're going to take that and let's say we could either put that in filters so that way it can actually sort it by in store or online, or you can represent it a little bit better and put it in the rows. And as you can see here, it lets us know which version of the game was online, which version was bought in store. And then again, we can also take that and put it in the columns. And as you can see here, we still have our game. So look, you can look across here. You can see which month it was purchased online and which months it was purchased in store. So I'm going to take that sale origin and put it here in the row section. That way it's going to sort everything out by what was purchased in the store, what was purchased online. And then here we have our sum of the sales. And then do keep in mind that this is all about nesting. So the way I have game at the bottom and then cell origin at the top, you can move that and it'll rearrange that information. So that's pretty much all a pivot table does is help you quickly rearrange your information without having to go in and change it. And you'll see here we have our grand total amounts. We have our total amounts here. So here, let's try a different section. So let's take our cell origin and we'll put that in columns. We'll keep the month sold up top. And all I did was just, yeah, again, it's just some arbitrary information just to show the games we sold from January to June and whether we sold them online or in the store. So here, take for instance, if we look at Black Ops. So we can see that we had online sales in January and then our total for our January sales. We made no sales in February for in-store, so there's no value for our total of in-store sales. But we did have online sales again in March. So again, all it is just a way to represent the data. Nothing hard, nothing difficult. And say you need to change those values. Say we sold more than 4,000. All right, go back to your main sheet where you have that data. Let's find Black Ops here and let's change one of these. Let's say it was 8,000. You just hit enter, go back to the sheet that has your pivot table, right click, and hit refresh. And then you should be able to see that difference that we made. So we got now 4,000 in online sales during January, and then we have 8,000 in sales during March. So that's the value that we changed. So if you need to play with pivot tables, again, just make sure you have a data source, which is that, and then you want to select it and hit insert and hit pivot table, and then have your values here that you want to sort the information by. And remember, you can always play around with these if you need to, just so it is just another way to make the data easily representable. You want it to be in a legible format, whatever makes it easier for whoever's going to be checking out your chart to understand. So don't be intimidated by it. Again, super easy stuff. So let's say if I take this filter off, maybe we want to put our sales origin in the rows. There you go. You're going to see what's in store, which month, what games, the amount sold, and then the totals. Really simple, really easy stuff. And down here at the bottom, you have your grand totals. Now, if you need to change any of this information, again, like you can see, it's just in some normal number formatting. What you can do is click on, let's say, sum of sales. Since that's going to be numerical data, we can go to value field settings. We can either do the sum, the count, the average, the max, the min, all of that good stuff. But let's keep it on sum. Let's go to number format. And this, remember, is the same as what you see in this column here, the general, where you can change all the number formatting. Let's put this to currency so that it shows that these are dollars. Hit OK. Hit OK one more time. And now you have your dollar amounts. You can see the sales amounts. And again, this chart, this pivot table just has everything sorted out based on when we had the sales, the totals of those sales. So you can see the total of those sales for February. You got the total of the sales for March, total of the sales for April. So again, super easy thing to play with. Now we can see here in the row column, here, let's highlight that row real quick. Here's our total for in-store sales, and then our total for online sales, and then our grand total of total sales from January to June. And this pretty much, this is your entire pivot table. So just make sure you have some data that you want to show on there. Once you have that data set, it's going to be super easy to play around with it in the pivot tables. And then again, you select what information you want to be shown. So you can always turn certain things off. So let's say if we just want to see, just for the sake of the example, the game and the amount sold. And there you go. It is going to show those two. And if they want to see more information, they can always click and add or turn these back on. But this is going to show us which game sold, how many we sold, or at least how much we sold, and then our grand total of sales. And that is your pivot table. Now, you can also select a recommended pivot table. So again, you're still going to have to pick that same amount of data. So here, let's go back to that real quick. We have this selected. You can pick recommended, and it'll recommend a few different ones for you. Again, you just have to decide on how you want your information to look, how you want it to be represented. So definitely get it around and experiment with that. It's really not difficult. As long as you have some data to play with, everything else Excel will take care of for you. All right, the next thing on the insert tab are illustrations. Of course, just like many other Microsoft Office programs, you can insert images or whatever you need. So here's a picture of me I'm going to put here. The only thing, just to be professional about it, you may not really want to put images in your spreadsheets because it can detract from the actual information that people need to be paying attention to. However, if you decide that you want to play with something, fun and creative, and you just want to have, maybe a little header image of, some nice little illustration or something, that may be acceptable. But you do want to make sure if you're going to insert any kind of images in your spreadsheet that they're carefully picked and they go with some sort of theme. So if we're selling balloons and I don't know, stuffed animals and all that kind of stuff, or for the sake of this example, we're selling video game stuff, you could probably have a video game controller image here and maybe one of the actual game cartridge or something like that. But again, inserting images inside your spreadsheet is really pointless, but you can do it, and you'll get that contextual tab here to play with the different styles and formatting of the image if you feel you absolutely need to have an image there. This is the same stuff that you saw in Microsoft Word, so we're not going to waste too much time on it. So let's get rid of that. The add-in section, again, if you click on that, if you want to explore that, you can, well, actually, I'm not signed into Microsoft, but there's different add-ins you can put in there to make Excel a little bit more efficient. A lot of times you won't really need it unless there's a specific purpose for an add-in. So I wouldn't really worry too much about that. And then the next thing you have here are the recommended charts. So that's going to go kind of with along with the pivot table thing. You'll have to have some data selected, click recommended charts, and Excel will try to help you determine what's the best chart type for your information. So if you can see these here, these are all previews of that exact information. So here, let's try a different chart. And here at the bottom, you can see it already has the months already sorted out and then the cells. But maybe we want to show a little bit more information than that. So we can kind of go through these charts, see if any of these work out for you. For instance, this one might work out because it gives us the title of the game. So that's a good way to keep track of the product. And then it shows the amount of sales made from each product. So that could be useful. But then again, it's not showing us the period, the month of the sale. So again, we want to make sure that you have a chart that represents the data the way you need it to be exhibited. So you can always go to all charts and look at different charts here. So again, this is about inserting charts. It's super easy. Again, these are all the same thing. It's just different ways to represent your information in the chart. So if we wanted to do a bar chart, you could click on that and decide, hey, let's try this 3D chart, this 3D bar chart. The chart's too small, you can always enlarge it. And then remember, you can manipulate individual pieces of the chart. So you can always click on these and you can have more options as far as the chart's formatting. Now, by double clicking on one of these, you'll get this little pop-up menu where you can format the data. So with this, you can format your series option. You can always pull down the menu here. If you want to see the fill options, if you want to change the colors, you can always change the colors if you like. So that's going to change the color of that. You can change the border colors if you need. When you go here, this is just going to give you some more aesthetics to put on those charts. Again, you probably don't want your chart to be too crazy. You want to be able to represent the data, not so much the visuals. Then if you go to this option, which is going to be your series option, you can change your gap depth, as in how far apart you want the data images or the data information to be. You can go to the gap width. Again, just ways to make sure that the data is represented properly, how you want it to show. And again, this is just inserting charts, so you're going to have a bunch of different options here. So just make sure you have your data selected that you want to insert the chart to. Like I said, you can hit recommend it, and Excel is going to recommend various charts for you. Or you can go to either one of these and pick the specific type of chart you like. So for instance, let's go with a pie chart. Let's check this out here. So I'm gonna hit the 3D pie chart, and then you can always resize the chart just so that it's legible. And then what we want to do here, remember, you can always manipulate individual pieces of the chart. So say we click on one of these here, you can pull and expand these charts out and expand exact pieces. Like say we want to emphasize that particular point. And this is for the Pokemon Go for in-store sales during February. We can point that out so we can say, hey, well, we didn't think we were going to do so great on those sales. And that's a good way during your presentation to remind you to emphasize that specific point. And then down here, you see we have our legend that gives us all the information about the various aspects of the chart. And then if you need to modify any information in the chart, you can double click the chart and you'll get this format option over here. Now over here, we can select the different data options as far as formatting. If you want to change the colors, if you want to add any effects to it, or if you want to adjust things about the series like this. See how we can rotate the chart? We can explode the chart more, the pie explosion. And then again, like I said, you can always grab individual pieces and move those pieces. Now, with as far as the data, you can go up here to select data and pick what data you want it to show. And we have our sales data, and then we also have our different games that we have here. So you can always edit that information. If you hit edit, you select the table where it's asking you here to select for your axis, and it already has it selected for you. But if you want to change that, you can always change that. So let's say we don't want it to have all the repeat information. So let's go from here to, let's see, about there, and let's hit OK. Then you hit OK again, and now you can see our legend's a little bit smaller, and we don't have a lot of repeat information. So again, it's super easy stuff to play with when you're inserting charts. Again, you just want to make sure you have data there. So I'm going to delete this chart real quick. Let's select our information again. Let's stop at that without the repeat. Go back to insert and let's try a different chart. And then if you want to change anything about the chart, you'll have this contextual menu, the design, and then we'll look at format real quick here. With format, again, you can change the aesthetics of it. If you can see all of this good stuff here, the shape, color, the fill, the format, the selection. You have your chart area. If you pull that down, then you should be able to see your data, the chart title. So you can change all of these individual pieces of it. So let's say we want to be a little bit more clear about what we're displaying here. And for the chart title, let's put in games. All right, see, so now we change that. This area over here, the series data, you can change all of this information also. For instance, we can change the way the numbers are. So let's put that as currency. So again, we know that we're talking about money here. And then this section is the axis options. You could change this as far as what the values go up to. So let's say the minimum is going to be 0. The maximum right here is showing as 9,000. And that's just because of what Excel picked up. But let's say we want to see something a little bit higher. So you could change it to 10,000. And now you see how it rearranges. So if you ever have that problem where maybe you have too much shown on the chart and it's not going to the maximum number, all you do is go into your axis options and you can change these units. So let's say here it's saying display units. It looks like it's going by every thousand. We can switch it to hundreds. We can switch it to millions. And for now, we're just going to keep it at thousands. So the intervals will go by the thousands. And like I said, you can change these individual portions here, and you'll always get this little formatting option here. You can change the way all of this stuff looks. So maybe if you don't even want it to show that, then you can delete that little section. But if you do want it to keep that, then of course you want to keep that information legible. And then here it's just going to show you the percentage of the totals. So again, get in there, play with the insert, use some of these charts, and find something that works for you that best shows your data. So let's go ahead and get rid of that chart. We'll go back to our insert tab here, and then we'll try one more chart. So let's grab our data and we'll throw in a line chart here. So let's do something like that. And again, you can see where it's showing us all of the information as far as the amount of sales for the games. You can always go here and format the axis. So you have those different axis options. So you have your alignment options. And if you go to this part of axis options, again, this is where you could change the bounding. So with this, it'll start at a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 9,000. You can always change it. Say we want to put 12,000. You hit enter. So now our maximum goes up to 12,000. And that's just something to keep in mind, just in case you put some information in and your graph is going well above what the value should be, or the values aren't showing properly. Just double click this section and then go into your axis options and change what you want the maximum value to be. So that way all the information on your data set is showing up properly. Again, you still have these display units if you want to show it in the hundreds, the thousands, millions. You can display this information any way you need to. Whatever's going to make this information understandable, this is where you'll play with it. All right, so back to our insert tab. So now you know how to do that. With the 3D map, this one is a really cool feature, but it is going to be very intensive on the computer, on your PC, especially on the graphics, because it does use 3D. So I'll show you what that is real quick here. And what that does is give you a 3D globe that you can zoom in and out of. Again, there's nothing, intimidating about any of this. It is a really cool feature, but all it is a good way to represent your information, to represent your data if you want to show something by specific regions or, countries or something like that. So here, let me give you a quick example of that one. So to do the 3D maps, you need to put in the country, and do keep in mind with these, you can't do like the acronyms. I don't believe like GB for Great Britain, or whatever the country codes like USA. You need to put in the actual country name. So let's do and let's just put table up here, because what we need to do is turn this information into a table. So we'll go location and we'll go sales. So let's turn this information into a table real quick. So just highlight it, go up to table, click table. Again, it's asking you where's your data. And then we do have table headers, which is going to be location and sales. Hit OK. So now we have our little mini table here, right? Let's go back to insert. Let's go to 3D map, click the down arrow, click open in 3D maps. And we'll pick tour one because that's the information the one that we used in the first place. All right, and now that we have that open, we don't see any data. We just see our cool little 3D globe. Go back down here to your main worksheet where all of that's still highlighted. Click this down arrow, go add selected data to 3D maps. All right, so again, still no information, right? So what we need to do now, because we do have a data set, we need to include that information into the map so that it'll represent it for us. So let's go here. The first one, we're going to go location, country, and region. So it knows that's one of our tables. Then let's go to add height, which is going to be sales location, or I'm sorry, sales information. And then if you want to go, you can add more categories and all that good stuff, but this should be sufficient. So let's move this out of the way. And what you can see here on our map, let's zoom in. Now it's showing our sales data. So it's showing right in the center of the United States because that's all I picked was the US. But then we can go over to this side and we can see the data representation here in Japan. We see the representation here in China. So here we can zoom in more. Again, all it is a 3D map, and you can navigate down so you can get a better view. And it's just another way to represent the data. So if you want to show sales in a certain country or a certain region, it's just a cool way to show that. And another good thing about it, here, let's verify that our Great Britain, okay, so our United Kingdom information showed up as well. The cool thing about that is that if you want to show this information and have something this super visually appealing, super cool, that's great, but keep in mind for your presentation you want to make sure that the computer you're using can actually handle this kind of stuff. And then what you can do is create a tour. So with these, you have different options. I would definitely invite you to get in there and explore. But you can create a little mini spinning video so that way while you're speaking, this information can show up. The information is dynamic, so you can record specific scenes where it will show that information change over time. Just do keep in mind, like I said, it is kind of intensive on the computer. So unless you know for a fact you're using a computer that has a great processor on it, I wouldn't bother with it too much, but if you want to show off a little bit, there you go. All right, and the next thing I want to show you are the spark lines. A lot of people don't use them, but they are useful. Again, it's just another way to represent your data visually. So what we're going to do here, let's go back to this sheet that has some information on it. And the way the spark lines work, the information needs to be all in the same column or in the same row. So if that makes sense to you, remember it's not going to let you insert the information unless it's all in the same column or the same row. So I'm going to just make some dummy data here. Let's Control C to copy that. Control V so we can paste it. And I'm just going to keep pasting these same values here. All right, so now I got a couple columns of different values. And then I want to change these values up a little bit just so that we can get some different calculations. All right, so in order to get our spark lines to show up, I know a lot of people usually have issues with it. So I'm going to show you the easiest way to remember. One, you want to have a lot of data. Two, you need to make sure that whatever you're selecting is either in the same row, that one single row, or in the same column. All right, so let's show you how to do that. And where I want to put my spark line is going to be here. I'm going to put it in our J cell. Scroll in here. And we're just going to represent the information from the God of War cells. So let's go here. Let's select that. Let's go to spark lines, and we'll start off with column. So do keep in mind you have the line, the column, and then win and loss. So we'll start with the columns just because that's an easy one to represent. So we have our cell J2 selected. I'm going to click column. So it's asking me data range. Remember, it has to be either a single row or a single column. So we're going to go from here to here. And then where are we going to put it? Just double click it or either click this arrow here, select J2 so it knows that's where you want to go, and hit OK. So here, let me expand that so you can see the little row that it gave us, the row of information. And here, let's pull this down so we can see that a little bit better. So you have a miniature chart to quickly represent that information. If you need to show it for more than one thing, of course, remember, Excel is really great at filling in the information for you. Grab your little fill handle here at the corner, click and drag to wherever it is that you want to stop, and it automatically creates charts for you. And you can see here with those lines, these are all totally different. And I'll expand this one just so you can see that one here. So you can see it shows the amount of cells all totally different. You can pick to show the high points to light up, the low points to light up, the negative points, we don't have any, so it's not going to show that. Differentiate the first point and differentiate the last point. And of course, here in the various styles, you can go in through this and play with the different styles. Again, just visual ways to make sure your data is legible, that people understand what you're trying to convey with your data. Another thing you should know, if you need to get rid of this information by hitting backspace or delete, that's not going to take it out. You can always go to the home tab and go to clear. But the way to remove these type of charts is right here. There's a little group here where you can change the axis, go to clear, and either clear the selected spark line, which is highlighted in green with the green border, or you clear the entire spark line group, which is going to be all of the information that we have here. So just so you know how to clear that out. Again, if you want to change things, just have it highlighted, click the type that you want and it'll select it for you. So now you have a little mini chart there to show the variation of sales from the beginning of January all the way to June, and it lines up with just that row. You can also go into edit data if you need to edit the information there, if you want to change the values, and drop down menu. So if you want to change the chart style, the visuals, again, we're representing the same data, just different ways of doing it. All right, so those are your spark lines. Remember, it just needs to be information from the same row or information from the same column. That's the only way your spark lines are going to work. Now, the next thing that we have on insert is going to be the slicer and timeline. The slicer is just, again, you're just representing the data visually in a different way. So what that is just going to give you a little pop-out box that pulls out specific information. So let's select this table. We'll go to slicer. So it gives us our two options from our table. Do we want to slice out the location or the cells? So let's say the cells. We want to emphasize the cells. Select the cells, hit OK, and voila. You have this little table here that shows you the various cells. So that's all it is. And all you have to do is click on it, and it's going to tell you which country is pretty much filtering it for you that has those cells. Now, the options up here, again, you have your slicer settings, you have your different styles. So that way you can be all color coordinated if you need to. The bring forward and send backwards, those are just your layering styles. And what that is, I'll show you real quick here. Let's go back to insert. Let's hit slicer again. And this time we're going to put location, hit OK. And now we have this different chart with location. And you can see when we have the cells of 1000 highlighted, it shows United States. If we hit 2000, it's going to show UK. So just remember that it is linked together. But what these are here, the arrange. So say we don't want this chart to overlap that chart, hit send backwards and it'll move it out of the way, or bring forward. However you want to do it, just know that is an issue a lot of people have where they put too much information in and they thought they lost something. You just have something overlapping. So look for the arrangement options, bring forward or send backwards. Play with the alignment if you need to. Here we can do something like snap the grid. So that way it'll snap in place and move it around. But if you ever have a chart where you put another chart in and it's overlapping and you can't see it, look for the arrangement options, send forward or bring backwards. All right, so now what I'm going to show you how to do is to play with the timeline. Again, this might not be something you use frequently, but it is something that can be useful for you. All right, so let's go back to our game data. You do need to have 3 categories on that. You need to have some sort of title. This will be our information. We're going to use the games, and you need to have some sort of date. So either the month, the date, the week, the year, something like that. So there needs to be some sort of timeline. So we're going to go here. Let's go all the way down to there. Hit Control C. Let's jump back to our other sheet here. Let's go ahead and paste that. And then we need to have some sort of numerical value that we're rating. Either it's going to be a completion date or something like that. But for this case, we're going to use rating. So let's say God of War, a scale of 1 to 5, we'll go 5. World War II, we'll give it a 5. Black Ops, I wasn't too happy with that. I'll give it a 3. Mario Kart, 5. Smash Ultimate, 5. Pokemon Go is not really my game. I'll give it a 4 because it's cool. Tetris, we'll give it a 5. Fortnite, we'll give it a 4. So let's do, actually, we'll give you a 2 because you don't have a campaign mode, so you get a fucking 2. All right, so now we have this information. Let's go ahead and create some headers here. So let's say game, we'll go month, and we'll go rating. Select all of that information. Let's go to insert. Let's hit table. Yes, our table has headers. That is our data range. Hit OK. Now we have this table. So in order to get the timeline to work, what we need to do is select the date and then our numerical value. That's where we're going to start. And I'll show you what we're going to do with this part here in a second. Let's go back to insert and we'll put in just a simple little chart here, just a little bar chart. All right, and then in our chart, hit the plus sign here so we can see some of the options here. Go to data labels, click the little arrow here and go to more options. That way we have this format data label section. What we want to do is take out values because we don't need those values. Here, I'll show you again, like the 5 and the 2. We don't need that because we also have this vertical chart here. So let's get rid of that. And let's tell it that we want to pick from cells, a value from cells. Now it's asking us, where do we want to get these labels from? We're going to get them from here. Hit OK. Let's close this baby out. And now you can see there, it shows which games and their ratings. So to set up our little timeline, you can click down here, the horizontal bar, go up to format, And you can pick something like any one of these lines from here, arrows, straight lines, whatever makes you feel comfortable. So we'll pick something like that. Actually, here, let's do arrow so we can see our little timeline. And that's pretty much it. You just made a timeline. You can go in, if you double click any of these, you can pull up these options, or you can see the effects up here and play with it if you need to play with the formatting. But that's pretty much a timeline. So that's showing us our timeline. And if we need to see more data, we can select all of this, just not the titles, but we do need to grab that. Say Control C, throw Control V to put it in there, and then let's change these. So let's go just some random numbers there, 2. And now you can see here on our timeline how we have those different values, and it changes everything for us. So you can see that here on the chart, and we can see the various ratings over time. And if everything looks all squished up like that, just remember you can always go to the edge of your chart, expand it so everything's a little bit more legible. So here, let's scroll out a little bit and let's drag this chart over. And now you can see all of that information. So that's playing with a timeline. You can use that for something like project management. That'd be useful. You know, if you have something where you need to record some sort of milestones or something like that, again, you'll have that timeline option. Just remember, make sure you have a table formatted. Make sure you have some kind of date range for it to play with and some sort of values to go based on that date range. And then you can put in the information that you want here. And that's pretty much your timeline. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you here is how to import data. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because I do know a lot of people are, kind of getting into stocks nowadays. So let me show you a good way to import some stock information just to get started on keeping track of stocks. So what we're going to do here, I got a new sheet. I'm going to go to external data. This is on the data section, and this is where we're going to start on our next video. Let's go data from the web. And when you do that, you'll get this little web query window. It's just a little mini browser. And for this example, I'm just at finance.yahoo.com. And what that's going to do is just give you some quick information on some stocks. And as you can see here, you'll have these little arrows here, and you can select the table image, the information that you want. So just for the sake of this example, we're just going to use that little one here. I'm going to click import. Then it's going to ask you where you want to put the data. So I have a cell already selected. Let's hit OK. And now this just brought in that information from the Yahoo website. So of course, say we don't care about this information here, and we don't care about that. So let's delete that out of here. But we want to have this information. So this is a good way for you to start building up information if you want to keep an eye on the charts or keep an eye on the stocks. Again, you can pull in more information if you want. All right, select the cell where you want the information to populate. All right, and there you go. So here I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. So you can see here, we have a bunch of information that we don't need. So say if we want to get rid of all of that, you could just select that and delete it, especially if there's, again, nothing there that you really care to see. So let's delete that. But what you can see here is that we were able to get all of this Yahoo stock information on various cryptocurrencies. So again, that's a good way to go ahead and get started when you first start building up your data. So say we're going to start trading stocks today. We just created our own starting point. This is what the values are today. We can go ahead and keep that information and then build another sheet for tomorrow, import that information. And a lot of times, since this is external data, you can go ahead and update this data straight from here. You can refresh it, and it's going to refresh the link, refresh the data that comes in. So that's a good way to keep track of any stocks that you're on. Obviously, I mean, unless you're a baller, you probably don't have all of these, but find the ones that you do have and keep the information that you want. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that should do it for today. You learn how to insert charts, you learn how to export and import external data, and you learn how to play with pivot tables. So hopefully that helps you out in your job so you can demand more money, buy more video games and candy and coffee. This is Dathan, aka the Brown Llama from the Winkin' Gentleman Society. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at winkandgentleman@gmail.com or drop a comment below. Peace.